Okay, welcome everybody to the District 5 GSR orientation. I'm putting a link in the chat right now to the slideshow that we're going to be going over today. This link in the chat doesn't have any vocal to it, obviously, so it'll just be what I'm talking about today. And I will try to have Brian include the link also in the minutes for the next District 5 meeting minutes, because if you go into the slide, and we're going to do screen sharing and you'll get to see the whole slideshow today, but if you go into the slide, you'll notice that the slide is, well, it's just pieces, copy and paste these from all of the AA conference approved literature that pertains to being a GSR. And at the bottom of every quote, on the bottom of every slide, there's a page number and where that reference comes from. And I just wanted to let you know from the get-go, so that I don't forget later on, that page number and the reference is actually a link. And so if you click on that link, it'll take you to that piece of literature. So that's how that's going to work. So we're just going to get to it. My name is Carrie, and I am a recovered alcoholic, and I am your outgoing DCM, which means I was the DCM for panel 72. And now panel 74 is coming in, and your incoming panel 74 DCM is Nick, and your alternate is Carmack. And they are going to carry you through for the next couple of years. So let me turn my phone off. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and start screen sharing, and we're going to see how this goes. So what is general service? Well, in 1955, the AA groups confirmed the permanent charter for their general service conference. They thereby delegated to the conference complete authority for the active maintenance of our world services, and thereby made the conference, accepting for any change in the 12 traditions or Article 12 of the conference charter, the actual voice and the effective conscience for our whole society. And that comes from concept 2. General service representative. So now, what is a representative, and what am I representing as the GSR? Well, the strength of our whole AA service structure starts with the group and with the general service representative, or GSR, the group elects. We cannot emphasize too strongly the GSR's importance. No pressure, right? And that was a quote from Bill W. And you can find that quote on the last page, or is it the first page, of the General Service Representative pamphlet. And at the bottom of these, at the bottom of the slideshow slides, if anybody does go and look for this slideshow, so that you can do this slideshow in your own local district, there's a link. Whenever it gives a page number in little squiggly lines or italic quote, it is connected through a link to bring you to that piece of literature, and sometimes even to that specific page that I took the quote from. All right, so what is an AA home group, right? So if you're going to represent a home group, we got to first know what one is. So most AA members through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home in any of these meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and might also affect AA as a whole, a process that forms the very cornerstone of the AA service structure. As with all group conscience matters, each AA member has one vote. And this, ideally, is voiced through the home group. And that comes from page 16 in the AA group pamphlet. Oh, I'm sorry, page 15 and 16 in the AA group pamphlet. So here's our circle and our triangle, the 3 legacies. What are the 3 legacies? Mind, body, and spirit, right? No, that sounds amazing, and that sounds so super spiritual. However, actual facts have to come into play here too. And the 12 steps are our message, and they were written and in our big book, when the big book was being published in 1939. That's when the 12 steps were first published, and we only had one legacy at that time. And then the 12 traditions that protect our message came about and were unanimously adopted at the first General Service Conference in 1950 by the Fellowship. But we were still only 2 legacies, and we hadn't even gotten an opportunity to introduce anything like a triangle, because the 12 concepts in our service structure hadn't even been created yet. But 5 years later, after that first General Service Conference, after 4 more trials, we had our second real General Service Conference, which was the 12, which is where our third legacy, which is our service structure, was adopted. And then that's when we started kind of creating a structure which can perpetuate our message. So putting those 3 together, the 12 steps are our message, the 12 traditions protect our message, and the 12 concepts is how our message is to be perpetuated throughout the worldwide Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. If your group has an active GSR, you are connected to AA as a whole. So by choosing its most qualified member, a GSR, as a GSR, a group helps to ensure its own future and the future of AA as a whole. At district meetings, you will join with GSRs from other groups. You attend area assemblies 4 times a year in most areas. GSR pamphlet, page 19 is where those come from, those bullet points there. Just as you rely on your group for help in your personal recovery, so the AA groups of Canada, and the US rely on the General Service Conference in maintaining the unity and strength of our fellowship. Our obligation to all the alcoholics of today and tomorrow. And you see that little link down here at the bottom. If you click on that, it'll take you straight to the GSR pamphlet. So if you want to share this with your home group, or maybe if you are a GSR who has not yet gotten an alternate GSR for your group, and then let's say in 1 or 2 months from now you get an alternate and you want to send them this slideshow, just let them know that there's these links, and that'll help them to navigate through our literature. Next slide. Can everybody see the entire slide, even the top? Yeah, okay, because I can't see the top of it because of my, I didn't know how this screen share thing works. Okay, so it's up to you to keep 2-way communication going on between the group, your group, and the conference. So how is this done? How does this 2-way communication happen? Well, at district meetings, you join with GSRs from other groups. This happens monthly in District 5. Perhaps you've already worked with an intergroup or central office where groups band together to help alcoholics just in your locality. But your general service district is the second link in an entirely different chain, which extends much further. So if you guys can see my little pointer here, I'm just going to show you that there are a lot of meetings out here, and their meetings are not wrong or bad, right? They're just not connected to the general service structure through a GSR. But these meetings out here, why would we want to have a meeting? Well, maybe all of the attendees in the meeting that we want to start already have a home group, right? And you can't have two home groups, one member, one group, one vote. And so maybe all of the people who want to start a meeting out here, they already have a home group where they get to participate and their voice and their vote is heard through the general service structure already. So they're only meeting maybe once a week for a big book study or once a month for a speaker meeting, and their meeting does not exist outside of the prescribed meeting hour, so they don't need an IGR or a GSR or anything like that. It's just a meeting. Intergroups are out here too. Intergroups are super important. They serve the local, for areas that have an intergroup. Central Oregon does have an intergroup. There's a lot of districts in Oregon area that do not have an intergroup, and that's okay too. But for districts and areas that have intergroups are just as much AA. They're just not part of the general service structure. So they're just like the meetings, right? They're not wrong or bad. They're just not connected to the third legacy structure in Alcoholics Anonymous. Some good ideas include, wait, did I miss something? Yes, I'm not seeing the top of my, okay, what do I report at district meetings? So every month in District 5, the district meeting is on the second Sunday of each month at, hi Scott, Scott's the newest GSR too. I'm just now seeing him in the room. District 5 meetings are on the second Sunday each month at 4:00 p.m. So this same time. That's why I thought that this would be a good time to hold this orientation, is because it's at 4:00 on a Sunday. And some good ideas to include in your report to district would be have we recently implemented new GSR position? A new service position, or updated our bylaws. So an example of that would be when we went into the pandemic, I was a GSR, just newly elected GSR going into the pandemic, and some of the other GSRs from the other districts or from the other groups around Central Oregon started reporting things in their reports, like they have elected a chat chair and a newcomer rep. And it's like, well, what is a chat chair, right? And so you can get some good ideas from the other groups. And that's why you listen to the other reports, but you can also give ideas. If you have an idea that's working for your group, include it in your report, and maybe another group might use your idea. Have we changed any of the days, times, or locations of our meetings lately? Did we make any other major decisions or changes at a recent business meeting? Do we have any special events coming up or flyers to distribute? There's one group in town in District 5 that has a annual anniversary. They're the oldest group in all of Central Oregon. It's the WFS group. And every year they hold a really big anniversary party for themselves, and they invite all of the other groups around Central Oregon. So the WFS group, usually their GSR brings flyers to that district meeting to distribute, so that we all know that we're invited from the other groups. Are we planning a group inventory? Have we recently done a group inventory? Have we recently changed or adjusted our contribution pie chart lately, or distribution splits? So a home group that is healthy and that has a healthy pie chart really doesn't ever stay the same, right? So there's a sample pie chart that is not a suggested pie chart in the pamphlet called Our Seventh Tradition, Where Money and Spirituality Mix. Now, it's important for your group to know what services are supplied by which entities, right? So Jen is in the room today, for example, and she's the DCM for District 9 over in Portland. Now, District 9, they don't have any committee chairs really, because the West Side Central office does all of the committee work, right? So, for example, West Side Central office does their corrections, their CPC, their treatment, their public information, all of that stuff. And so they really don't need that much money. They only need probably 10 or 20% of contribution splits. Whereas in District 5, for example, district has been here before intergroup. And so district has all the service committee work. And so district needs a lot of money to carry out the services that the committee work does because it's all ran through district. So it's very important to know what entities do what services for your specific locality. Another good thing to remember is when we were going into the pandemic is to listen to your treasurer. Listen to the treasurer reports at every district meeting, because I know, again, when I was new at new GSR, we were going into the pandemic, and Walt was our treasurer at the time. And Walt was a really good treasurer. And one of the things I really appreciated about Walt going into the pandemic is his report about 3 months into the pandemic. He said, okay, listen up, groups. It doesn't look like we're going to get out of this thing anytime soon. And it looks like we have to stop travel. And so any money that's going into the district or the area, it's probably not going to be spent. So my suggestion would be to start withholding contributions to district and area, and maybe do a two-way split between intergroups, central offices, whatever you have in your locality, and the general service office, because both of those entities still have to pay rent. They still have to pay employees. They still have to pay for all of their services, whereas district and areas, really, it's just travel expense. So, for example, my home group took that information and we did that, and we didn't contribute to district or area for 2 years. We did a 50-50 split between intergroup and GSO. Then after the pandemic, because a lot of groups didn't do that, area had over $100,000 excess. And so it's good that we know that. It's good that at the area assemblies, we take that information back to the group, right? And so that the groups can decide, oh my gosh, well, we can't contribute to area because they have so much excess. So then my home group then stopped. We didn't contribute to area again until just this last quarter, when we finally went back down within the threshold. So it's really important to stay on top of the finances, and to also, if you do adjust your pie chart, maybe let us know in your district report. We don't want to know how much you're contributing. That's your business, right? That'd be like telling your neighbors how much you're making, right? But everybody does pay homeowners dues, so we want to know if you are adjusting that pie chart to if you're sending more money to GSO because you just got this latest letter, right? Or if you're sending less money to another entity because they have over too much money or whatnot. And that's really important for you as a GSR to stay up to date on. Have we recently experienced any major problems with a safety concern, or any problems you may want to share with the district in an attempt to ask for help or direction, or to share information about how your group got through it using the steps, traditions, and or concepts? So my home group once, I don't know, it was 6 or 7 years ago, we were dealing with a safety concern. One member and a safety concern. And after 2.5 to 3 years, and I don't remember how long it was, of debating in business meetings and going back and forth and giving him warnings, we eventually had to ask this gentleman not to attend our meetings for 90 days. Now, at the business meeting in our home group, we were split 50-50 on if we should include that in our district report. Why? Because, well, frankly, my home group is already one that's known as my home group, people already think my home group is too strict, and I didn't want to. I was one who voted no, let's not include let's not include having to ask this gentleman not to come back, because I could just see the other groups, it was my self-centered fear. I could just see the other groups saying, oh, there's New Horizons kicking people out of AA or whatever, right? And and then the other half of the group, they wanted to trust God and they wanted to trust the process. And that wasn't me. But we were 50-50. And so the GSR, which is your job, had to make the decision, right? They had the right of decision, concept 3. And so my GSR at the time, he did a really good job. I'm sure after prayerful consideration and consultation with his sponsor or whatever, he decided that he would include it in his GSR report, but in a very general way. He did a really good job. And after the meeting, I saw why it's so important to include even in the embarrassing stuff. And it's because not 1, not 2, but 3 GSRs came up to him after the meeting and they said, hey, is so-and-so who you're talking about, and we're dealing with this too. How did you deal with this? And then the GSRs can have those one-on-one conversations and share the experience, strength, and hope, right? Because in my AA meeting, I'm there as a member to share my experience, strength, and hope around my own personal sobriety. At the district meetings, we're there to share our experience, strength, and hope of our groups around the functionings of our groups. So that's what so I encourage you to share the good, the bad, and even, yes, the ugly. No one wants to hear, oh, I'm missing the titles here. What not to report at district meetings. I think I already went over that accidentally. No one wants to hear how much you're bringing in for 7th tradition or how many in attendance at your meetings. That's not useful information to share with the district. Other than asking for shared experience with a situation, do not ask for support. Oh, cringe. Your group should be fully self-supported by the voluntary contributions of its own members. If attendance is low, or you're not getting new members, you may want to consider a group inventory. This is how your district can support your group. Next slide. Your district is one part of the general service area, of a general service area. With your fellow GSRs, you elect a district committee member. That's your DCM. And all the DCMs make up the area committee. Now, do you just sit back and let your DCM take it from there? No, GSRs stay very much in action in each of the 93 areas in the US and Canada. What do I report back to my group? Oh, that's a great question, because we're gonna be reporting to the district, right, down here from the group, but we're also gonna be reporting to our home group from 1, 2, 3, and 4 different types. So there can be 4 parts to your report back to your group, because there's the General Service Conference and AA World Services. There might be something to report from the conference. There might be something to report from the area assembly level in Oregon Area 58. There might be something to report from District 5, right? So there's 4 different parts to your report. For example, this is the AAWS GSO report. These are just samples of things that could go into your report. Is there a new box 459 you can share with the group? That is the AA newsletter that comes out quarterly. Is the district service conference coming up? Or I'm sorry, is the general service conference coming up? What are some of the agenda items? Now, this only happens once a year, right? So this wouldn't go into your report every month, probably maybe 2, 3 times a year toward the end of, toward the beginning of the year when we're getting ready for the general service conference. Does your group wish to set a time to discuss the upcoming agenda items? Did the conference happen? What are some of the highlights of the decisions that were made at the general service conference? Is there a forum or a regional assembly coming up that you can invite your group to attend? Anything new on AA World Service website? Any new literature published? Then here's the section of your report back to your home group from the area. So you just get back from an area assembly, right? And you might want to include some of this in your report. Is there a new area newsletter out that you can share? Is the there an area assembly coming up that you will need financed for? That's important because you want to make sure that your group is supporting you and your efforts to carry their voice to these events. Is if you just got back from an area assembly, what information do you have to report, right? Did something get passed, a motion get passed that's going to change something in your area? Any area motions to discuss? How are area finances? Do you have a treasurer report to offer your group from the area? Did elections just happen? Who are the new area officers? Are there open service positions at the area that need to be filled? What positions? When will they be open? Where do you send your resume if you want that service position? Any tradition workshops or area conferences or events to announce, like PRASA. PRASA is coming up in March, and everybody is welcome to attend PRASA. It's going to be in San Francisco this year in the first weekend in March, and that's what the dates are, right? You include what it is, the event, what the dates are, and then how to register. And usually I like to include a link, a registration link in my report. Then at the district level, is there a district newsletter out that you can share? In District 5, we don't have a newsletter. The intergroup takes care of that, but in other districts, they have newsletters sometimes. What happened at the last district meeting? Any district news to report? Are there any district motions to discuss? How are district finances? Is there a treasurer report to give out? Upcoming service position openings at the district. What positions need to be filled? How to stand for a position? Did elections take place already? Who are the new district officers? Any district workshops or events to announce? Any dates? That would be like an event like this, right? You would want to invite your group to come and learn about the general service structure maybe. And then finally, at your home group, I like to include, and this isn't mandatory, again, these are just examples, but I like to include what some personal things to my home group to promote unity. For example, is it time to discuss a group inventory? Possibly give a small tradition presentation on the tradition of the month. Nick, I think, will be giving a tradition presentation at the district meetings. It's like short 5-minute tradition presentation. Sometimes it comes with a handout, and you can take that back to your home group and you can try and give the same tradition presentation or talk about that tradition with the handout, or even ask Nick for help to come to your business meeting and give a tradition presentation. I know that I did that for lots of groups recently, this last couple of years, and they just give me 5 minutes on the floor. I get through the tradition. Actually, Nick's group is having me do it. There's a couple of groups that have had me do it at group level, not just at the business meetings, and they give me a good 10 minutes once a month to do the tradition of the month. And if your group needs that or would like that, Nick, I'm sure Nick and Carmack would be more than happy to accommodate your group in that. Has your alternate GSR been accompanying you to the assemblies, district meetings, and or other events? You know, the alternate GSR, this is a great opportunity to thank them for their help in supporting you, right? Because if you have an alternate, you're a team, and you want to see them come with you to as many events as possible, because if you drop off the face of the earth tomorrow, right, drink, die, or move away, well, voila, congratulations, and I'm sorry, they're the new GSR, and they're going to need to know how to do their job. So the alternate job is kind of a training opportunity too. Has any trusted servant in the group gone above or beyond, and you would like to thank them for helping you? That's an awesome thing. I usually would grab a newcomer, right, from my home group. I would bring them with me to the GSR meetings. I would volunteer them to help as the timer or the greeter or the coffee pourer. I mean, you can grab a newcomer and bring them to the district meeting with you so that they can get a kind of a peek behind the scenes. The district meetings are open for all. Has any trusted servant in the group gone above it? Okay, remind the group that we are a team and express appreciation. Make sure your group knows that if they have any concerns, they can come to you and you will try to help. Next slide. I gotta get rid of this. There we go. Okay, sometimes called the guardian of the traditions. GSRs also may assist their group in solving a variety of problems, especially those related to the traditions. In serving their groups, they can draw on all the services offered by GSO. And again, remember to click on the links to take you to where this information is printed and offered in our literature. Resources to help a GSR acquire a better understanding of the traditions would be AA Comes of Age, right? First and foremost, that's where we get the traditions. I remember the first time, I think I had read like the 12 and 12 or something and thought I knew something. And I came in running my mouth because that's what I do. And the old timer sitting up the front of the room, Wayne S., you know, he was sharing, he was leading the meeting, and he seemed to work into his share that if anybody in the room thinks that they have been through the traditions but have not been through AA Comes of Age, that's like saying that you've been through the steps but have not been through the big book. And so that, obviously, I was insulted and appalled, and from that point on, I started an AA Comes of Age book study at my house every Tuesday that lasted 2 years. That's how long it took us to get through that book. So AA Comes of Age is a good one. Find yourself a good AA Comes of Age study. 12 Traditions Illustrated, another really great resource. The AA group pamphlet, otherwise known as the owner's manual to any AA group or meeting, and a service sponsor, someone who has done this before and can show you the ropes. You are not alone, and you don't have to do this alone. What is a service sponsor? Well, a service sponsor is usually someone who is knowledgeable in AA history and has a strong background in the service structure. An AA member is introduced to new language such as GSR, DCM, area assembly, minority opinion. They will become familiar with the traditions, concepts, and warranties, as well as the AA Service Manual, 12 Concepts for World Service, Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age, there it is again, and other AA literature. Service sponsorship continued. This one might be new to me. I don't remember seeing this one before. The same impulse that, oh yes, this is a good one. The same impulse that drives some new people to try to do AA alone drives some new GSRs to try to do general service alone. There's no reason to. In fact, there's every reason not to. As rewarding and enjoyable as general service can be, you might find yourself feeling overwhelmed at times. A service sponsor can make the difference between struggling in your service position and feeling a sense of purpose and accomplishment and having some fun along the way. A service sponsor is there to answer your questions about your responsibilities, the structure of general service, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts, and how to apply them. Their job also is to say, get in the car, right? That's not on the slide, but I've watched a couple of people in the room do this. You know, I've watched Davey ask Nick to service sponsor him, and the next thing I know, I'm seeing Davey at every area assembly. He's at every committee meeting. He's at everything. And it's like, it's because his service sponsor's telling him, get in the car. How do I help with group problems? Because you've made a special point of studying the information listed below, you can help when your group faces a problem involving one of the traditions. You don't have to know all the answers. No one member possibly could, but you learn where to look for good suggestions drawn from broad AA experience. And here's some examples. The AA group pamphlet, AA Comes of Age, Problems Other Than Alcohol, and the 12 Traditions Illustrated. I had to move my little bar again. I can probably close that out, but I don't know. Oh, I just closed it out. Now it's not in my way. I should have done that way earlier. Okay, the two, when does our GSR term start and when does it stop? The 2-year term of an area's GSR coincide with that of its DCM and conference delegate. So a group usually elects its GSR before the area assembly meeting at which the delegate is elected. September is a good month since that gives new GSRs the time to study the responsibilities of the job before taking office, most often on January 1st, along with the new DCM and the new delegate. Now, what this slide doesn't show is that Oregon Area 58 is an even year rotation area. And of course, the slide's not going to show that because this is a general piece of information from our literature, but every area out of the 93 areas we have throughout the US and Canada are either odd year rotation or even year rotation. Half of them are odd year, half of them are even year. They're all 2-year terms. So Oregon area happens to be on the even year rotation. So elections happen on an odd year, and then we all rotate, whether we're the GSR, DCM, delegate, whatever, on the first of the even years. How? Well, an informed group enjoys a special election meeting where a member with solid background in service work explains the function of the GSR. Now, this is something very important that a lot of groups recently in District 5 have come to realize after the fact. There's groups, even one recently, where there's a women's group in town that just elected a new GSR and alternate GSR. They sent them in for orientation. And now the GSR has to step down because she wasn't aware that the job consisted of going to these area assemblies once every quarter, right? Whether that's in person or online. She didn't know that what the job of the GSR it consisted of, which is very responsible of her, that she's not just going to remain in the position in name only. It's much better to not have a GSR than to have a GSR in name only. Why? Because you can't fill a filled position, right? So it's important that when you're electing a GSR, maybe ask your DCM, maybe ask Nick to come in or Carmack to come in and give a 5-minute presentation on what a GSR is, how much time is involved, and what their service responsibilities are. That's very important to not just elect somebody when they're going to the bathroom, because again, it's better to elect no GSR at all than to elect a GSR that's going to hold the position in name only. The strength of our whole AA service structure starts with the group and with the general service representative the group elects. No pressure, guys. We cannot emphasize too strongly that GSR's importance. That's actually a direct quote from our founder, Bill W. How important is it to elect someone qualified? Wow, I guess I already did that. I skipped forward. Most future conference delegates, excuse me, most future conference delegates will come from the ranks of today's GSRs. So your choice now can help to ensure representation for your whole area in years to come and continuing vitality for our General Service Conference, the heart of our co-founder's third legacy to all of AA. Why that's so important and why I encourage you guys to learn what the service structure really looks like is because if there's things going on at the bottom of the triangle, for example, on the board, right, the trustees and the directors and the chair of the board, if those things are going on that we don't like, we can't blame them. Who do we have to blame? Well, it's ourselves. We're the ones who are electing these GSRs, and that's where they come from. So if we elect an uninformed, misinformed GSR, we're going to end up with an uninformed, misinformed DCM. And where do you think our delegates come from? They come from being a past DCM. And so it's very important that we elect qualified GSRs. That's why it's so important to have an alternate GSR to shadow you for 2 years, to make sure that by the time you rotate out, they might be a qualified GSR because they've been with you for 2 years, right? So that's very, very important. Great care needs to be taken by the groups as they choose their representatives. Hit or miss methods should be avoided. Like I said, don't elect somebody when they're in the bathroom. Personal ambitions should be cast aside. Feuds and controversies forgotten. Who are the best qualified people should be the thought of all. And I will tell you, I have personally voted for somebody out of 14 people at an area assembly. I personally voted for the one person out of those 14 people that personally I disliked the most. But that person was the most qualified. And I've also not voted for my very best friend in a service position because she didn't happen to be qualified for something. So you have to really put those personalities aside when it comes to the welfare of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alternate GSR. At the same election meeting, it's important to elect an alternate GSR by the same voting procedure, right? Ask your DCM to come in, ask your alternate DCM to come in. The two will work together closely so that the alternate can be a knowledgeable replacement if the GSR is unable to attend district or area meeting. What happens if your group's GSR is elected committee member for your district? Then the alternate automatically becomes your GSR. That also happens if your GSR, like I said, drinks, dies, or moves away. That's why you have an alternate, so that you're never without a GSR. Sobriety and other requirements. 2 or 3 years sobriety is generally the required minimum. So that's general, right? And it's 2 or 3 years. It's not rigid. As your new incoming DCM would tell you, anyone who's been through the 12 steps is qualified. Anyone who hasn't been through the 12 steps is not qualified. That's what his, I think, that's what his take would be on that. This is extremely important. Active membership in a group, in a home group, yours is also important. You can't represent a group that's not yours. You can't be the representative of someone else's home group, right? And your GSR should hold no other offices in any other groups. Why it's so important for the GSR to set this example isn't because they're special. It's because they are the example. They're the guardians of the 12 traditions and the 12 concepts. And most people, especially newcomers, they don't come in knowing the concepts. There's people who are 30, 40 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous that don't know about concept 4, which is the right of participation, right? One member, one group, one vote. And there's some people who believe that you can have whatever, 4 or 5 home groups because it's not their job to know the concepts. It's not their job to see the upside down triangle in action or to understand it. But it is your job as the GSR to set the example of these concepts and traditions in action. So you don't want to set the example to the new people in your group or even the not so new by saying, oh yeah, that's my GSR sitting up there chairing that meeting that's not even their own home group, right? Or they're over across town being the treasurer for that other meeting. Now, this isn't to say that they can't hold positions at other levels of the triangle, right? One member, one group, one vote. But if you really want to be of more service, there is plenty of opportunity at the district level, plenty of opportunity at the area level. Just not, you can't do service at 2 different districts or at 2 different areas or at 2 different home groups, because again, we all have one voice and one vote. The home group affords individual AAs the privilege of voting on issues that affect the fellowship as a whole. It is the very basis of the service structure. While many AA members attend other groups as well, the home group is where they participate in the business meetings and cast their vote as part of the group conscience of the fellowship as a whole. And as with all group conscience matters, each member has one vote. Other qualifications for GSR. Experience of the fellowship suggests that most effective GSRs, these are bullet points, have at least 2 years of continuous sobriety, we just did that, are familiar with their group history, priorities, traditions, and procedures, are able to listen to all points of view, have the time to regularly attend district meetings and area assemblies and the group's business meetings, have a working familiarity with the 12 traditions, there, it's said right there, capital T, and AA recovery and service literature, have an email address or other easy ways of maintaining contact with group members. This is so that you can email your home group members, whatever, the minutes, flyers, invites, whatever, and are familiar with the GSO and area websites, which I would highly suggest also become familiar with your area and your district website as well. Financial support. Current experience indicates that many groups provide financial support for their general service representatives to attend service functions. So some groups, at least in District 5, only cover the expenses of their GSRs to attend area assemblies. That's fine. That's not bad. That's not wrong. Some groups go above and beyond and also fund their GSRs to attend things like the regional assembly, which is PRASA, which is a once a year regional assembly consisting of all 14 areas in the Pacific region, Oregon Area 58 being one of them. Some groups even fund the GSR to go to the PNC, the Pacific Northwest Conference, or the Forum, which only happens once every 2 years. And whatever your group is willing to fund you, you should probably know that from up front, because it'll be really good to take advantage of all of that extra experience and opportunity to be of service and to carry your group's vote and voice at other events. Financial support. Once the basic group expenses have been taken care of, for example, rent, refreshments, AA literature, local meeting lists, GSR travel expenses, which come before anything else, to attend service functions, then a prudent reserve has been set aside to cover any emergency contingencies that might arise. The group might decide to further carry the message by sending money to the AA service entities. So I don't know if anybody here has heard in business meetings, and this is a myth and misconception, here's a myth buster, that groups have to contribute to the local intergroup, the local district, the area, GSO. No! If you have any money left over after your expenses are met, then please, yes, send down the triangle. Send money to whatever is left over after your GSR travel expense is met, after your prudent reserve is met, and after your rent is met. But those, the district, the area, the GSO, your intergroup, those are not a priority over your group's expenses and over getting your GSR to these. I don't know if anybody's heard the phrase, we need you more than your money. That's absolutely more true today than it has ever been, right? If your group has enough money to fund the GSR to one of these other service events, but then might not have money to send to your local district and area, send the GSR. We need strong people in service, because the GSRs are who makes the decisions for the future of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not the trustees, it's not the delegates, it's us, it's the GSRs. And so we need to be informed. Be able to pay its own way. Number one, I think I just kind of went over this in the paragraph above in the quote. Ensure that it has a voice is number 2 priority. And then prudent reserve. Wow, prudent reserve comes after making sure that the GSR is financed. And then contributions to the world, to the whole of the society, district, area, GSO, central office, intergroup. Next is, does your group include people who already have a keen interest in the 12 traditions and the service structure? If so, you're in luck. Yay! If not, where can we start? Well, Incorporate an AA comes of age study. It doesn't even have to be once a week. Your group can just get together and study comes of age, maybe even once a month. Maybe after the meeting every, Wednesday night, or after every Sunday afternoon, or whatever, right? It's a great way for a group to build unity. Invite a tradition speaker. You guys are in luck. Your new incoming DCM knows these principles of the second legacy like, I don't know. I haven't heard anybody really truly understand the principles like your new incoming DCM in a long time. And he can articulate them in a way that is easy to understand and not offensive. I know the traditions pretty well myself. They come off offensive. Nick is wonderful at this, so please take advantage. And then the last is host an annual tradition workshop. That group that I was talking about, the WFS group. They have a speaker once a year to celebrate their birthday, right? And I think they have an old timer speaker. Then they have like a new, I think, and I might be making stuff up. I used to belong to the group years ago, but back when I belonged to the group, they'd have like somebody who just celebrated 1 year to give like a 10-minute talk about the home group. And that's the topic. Like the newest member of the group who just celebrated a year would give a talk about kind of the home group, right? Maybe that group could incorporate, I don't know, a 5 or 10-minute tradition presentation or talk from the DCM, right? Like, get creative with this stuff. There's really no limit. There is more than one way for GSRs to express their group's thoughts and wishes. The conscience, I'm sorry, let me try that again. There is more than one way for GSRs to express their group's thoughts and wishes, their conscience in general service. Number one, when the GSR is present, right? Suit up and show up. At assemblies, the group's voice is heard. The presence of the GSR says their group cares about what's going on in the fellowship and wants to learn and make its concerns and suggestions known. Number two, when a group GSR participates. So you not only show up, but then you also have to speak up, right? The group's voice is heard. It can be through the GSR sharing the group concerns across the conference table for other GSRs. It can be through questioning a budget item or proposing an idea important to the group at an area assembly. It can be through making an impassioned plea about an agenda item. That was always my specialty, to the delegate on the evening of the annual general service conference meeting. I remember I sent an email to my delegate she was on the airplane on the way to the general service conference, and I just wanted to make sure that mine was one of the last voices she heard. And then number three, and those aren't bad things. The literature is suggesting that these are things we do. Not things we avoid. We want to make our voices be heard. When the GSR votes, that's the last one. The group's voice is heard. The GSR votes on the trusted servants to lead the district and the area, as well as the delegate to represent the area and the annual general service conference meeting. The group's voice is heard when the GSRs vote on how best to use the 12 tradition contributions to carry out 12-step services. What's important is to participate. Participate. GSR is present, GSR participates, and the GSR votes. All right, frequently asked questions. If I can't make the next district meeting or area assembly, can I ask someone from my group to go in my place? The answer, all AA members may attend district meetings and area assemblies in most areas, but only elected GSRs and alternates, when the GSR is absent, may vote. So you can send anybody in your place to listen and to take notes, but unless they're elected as your alternate, they probably will not be getting a vote. And the question, another question, if no one in my group is interested in taking my place as GSR when my term is up, should I continue until they find someone or even serve another 2-year term? The answer is no, but I'll read the answer in the literature. Answer, the traditions and concepts encourage rotation of service, even when it appears the position will be left unfilled. Perhaps consider taking on a different role in general service. Your interest and commitment is always needed. And the end. So I got through it all with 10 minutes to spare for some Q&A.